Okay, so I have on Keana Mitchell, and we are going to also go over some things about marriage at first sight. Keana Mitchell actually has her very own podcast called the Music and Vibes Podcast, and the podcast is about relationships. Is that right, Keana?
That's correct, yes.
Perfect. So how long have you had your podcast for?
I've had my podcast going on 3 years, I believe. I started in 2017, but then it was a whole different podcast. It was about songwriting and stuff like that. But then I realized that was not going in the right direction. So then I changed up and started talking about something I was interested in. And that
Hmm.
is how the Music and Vibes podcast was born, created, and that started in 2018.
Nice, awesome. So yeah, so you've been doing this way longer than me. So, so we're just going to go over marriage at first sight, and seeing as out you've been married for 15 years, correct?
Yes,
I
15
believe
years.
I believe you have some good insight on that. Okay, so when you first watched the show, what was your initial reaction to it? Like what were your first thoughts?
I was shocked actually. I was like, who would put themselves through this type of experiment? Like, what if it doesn't work out? I was like, who's going to do this? But then I started watching it and I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. I kind of see. And then it just drew me because each week the experts had them try a new thing to help with their marriage and new techniques and new insight. They had tons of advice that was like free, that they were just freely giving out. And it was amazing to watch how from their first initial wedding, when they actually met that person, to how
Hmm.
their relationship evolved toward decision day. So each week I was just drawn in, like, oh, I wonder what they're going to do next. And each couple was so different and their challenges were so unique until I just couldn't stop watching.
I agree. It's like you go through your own stuff in a relationship, and then you kind of see how other people handle it, and you're like, "Oh my goodness," or just maybe thinking initially how everything would go with an arranged marriage, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, like how does that work out?" Which kind of leads me to my next question. So, what would you imagine an arranged marriage to be like? How would you think that would pan out, like for yourself, if you had that?
Well, I don't think it would work. It would have worked very well for me because my mom would have probably not picked the person I would like or who I was compatible with. She would have just
Uh
picked someone who she liked, who she
huh.
thought was fine. So that wouldn't have worked out in that instance. But I do believe that if I was in Married at First Sight and experts who spoke to me, talked to me, got to know me, and actually picked someone based off of my characteristics, personality, and matched me with someone that way, I think that might have a better chance of working out than if my mom or a parent just picked somebody.
Yeah. So it wouldn't like because I think what kind of happens to a lot of them is it freaks them out because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you go on this show and yes, you're looking for love and you find this person, but it's like, I wonder how many of them actually take it serious at heart. You know what I mean? Like, I know we've seen like some of them stay together. I actually haven't followed any of them afterwards. Have you? Like, seen
Yeah.
anything like
I
years
kind of look it
down?
up.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah, they
Have
have
they
this
stayed together?
they have like they had, who was it? It's Jamie and I forgot the guy's name. It's this group. It's this couple, Jamie and I forgot her husband's name. They were, I think they were one of the original ones. They ended up getting married. They stayed together. They had a child together. So they do stay together, and they even have like their own spin-off show called Jamie Plus One. So they did stay
Oh,
together. I
wow.
know that's the longest couple I can say. Now everyone else I do look up from time to time just to see, oh, I wonder if they're still together. Because it's always a question in my mind because it looks good after the
Hmm.
show ends. But, being married, it's just like, it's not easy. It's difficult. Whether you know the person or you just meet them, regardless, it's a hard thing to do, but you just work on it. So I'm
Hmm.
always interested to see if they stay together and if this is a good experiment. Because if this is something that can actually work, I think people could take I'm not saying do the exact same thing, but just take
Mhm.
lessons and learn what to look for. See what the experts are talking about. And then you can start looking for those characteristics. And then I feel that you will have whoever does it will have a better chance of staying together, picking someone who they're compatible with rather than going off emotions.
Right. Definitely. So, being married and having seen the show, would you say that you've gone through anything similar that they did?
Oh yeah, it's like a lot of things that they go through. I was watching the other day. I was like,
Mhm.
is this what married people just go through? Because it's like a lot of the same things I went through. Like
Mhm.
it was season 9, and it was the couple Jamie and his wife. Now, I didn't think they were going to stay together, but they did. So, but I'm not
Oh,
going to
this one,
give spoiler.
the where the redhead.
Yes.
Oh my
Oh my
goodness, yes,
goodness.
they were my favorite couple.
I love them, but I'm sitting up there like,
Yes.
I don't know how this is going to exactly work out because it seemed toxic, but then when you look at it, it wasn't really exactly a toxic situation. They were just too much alike. Like they were both fiery. No one could take a step back and be like, okay, you can win this argument. I want to see what you're talking about. Everyone was like, no,
Mhm.
I'm winning it. I'm getting the last word. This is just how it
Mhm.
is. So he would take digs at her, but then she would give digs back. And I know that she
Right.
knew what made him tick, just like he knew what made her tick. So it was like tit for tat the whole time. And I was just like, oh my goodness. I was shocked that they stayed together. And the people who I was shocked did not stay together was Keith and Iris. I was like, are you serious? What?
Were
That
you
was
shocked? I kind of saw it coming.
you
I,
did?
I saw like it just seemed that he wasn't like it made okay. He probably really wanted the marriage to work and he probably looked at her as like a very decent young lady.
Oh
But
yeah.
as far as like you have to have that like bond and connection, and I don't think I saw that from him. A lot of their relationship was like very structured, if you know what I mean. Like they
No,
were
I
like doing
did.
all the right things, saying all the right, like, following all of the advice from the coaches and things like that. But I don't think they had like that connection. I think they had moments where they kind of bonded a little bit, but I was like, I think he's gonna tap out. I mean, she's all in because
Yeah.
she's excited and everything, but he like, he's gone through. I mean, like, especially because she was, well, not absent. She was a virgin, so
Yeah.
you have a different emotional connection. You know what I mean when you have that intimacy. So it's just I didn't foresee them making it. Now I thought that maybe they would connect a little later and
Hmm.
possibly get together after that, but I didn't follow any of them afterwards. So that was the most recent season though, right?
It was. I binge watched that on Hulu. Yeah.
Okay. I did too,
It's
it's
like I'm just
fine.
and see, the thing about that particular relationship, it kind of like hit home with me because when I got married, well, I was a virgin for a long time. And so,
Okay.
but my thinking was way different because I think she did it for like reasons of, I don't know. I think her reasons were like she wanted to get to know the person better, and she wanted to have that emotional connection before she did anything else or went further, which I
Mhm.
understand. My reasoning was just because I was like, I don't know who have diseases, I don't know what's going on, so how about I just not?
Yeah.
That was my
Mm,
thinking. So
yeah.
my whole for being a virgin was totally different from hers. So I think for me, it wasn't that difficult to for intimacy or anything because it's something I wanted. I just didn't do it because I didn't want to catch some kind of disease or something like that.
Right.
So for me, my thinking was different, but she really cherished that. You could see she did. And for me, I think the deciding moment where I kind of saw the disconnect, I didn't see it at first, and I was blindsided, but it was like one moment where I saw where they had this disconnect was when he asked her about a secret. I think the experts told her to tell him a secret,
Yeah.
and her
She
secret was
gave
a quarter. I was like,
exactly
I don't think that's what that means. I'm
at
like,
all.
I know I was a virgin for a long time, but I had some secrets, okay? So it wasn't like that. I'm just like, wow. And then he's like emotionally they're now on the same level. And I'm like, okay, I can kind of like
Yeah.
let you try to work through that. But he
Yeah,
was
see,
like,
at
no,
that
I
moment, he
cannot.
was looking for her to be a little bit more vulnerable so that, see, that was the point where he was looking for that connection since he wasn't getting anything, he didn't have that, and which he was fine with. And I commend him for that. Like, that was very big of him and
He
awesome.
was.
But, yeah, he was just looking for some type of, more intimate bond or something
Mm-hmm.
like that to connect him to her that a typical family member or friend wouldn't be able to have with her. And I guess she didn't understand. So I guess since you said you were a virgin until for a very long time till you're married, so what did you relate at all to her kind of being when she was apprehensive, like when they had to do the game where like they did like the touch and like the kiss and like all of that like little stuff, and she was like kind of like childlike about it,
Yeah,
for
exactly.
lack of a better word. But could you relate to that at all, or was it totally different? I know you said because you guys had total different reasons for
Exactly.
remaining abstinent. So what what do you think about that? Do you think that maybe she was a little bit emotionally immature, or is that just typical because she's just never experienced it, so she's just afraid?
Well, see, I think it was a lot of emotional immaturity because I know, like I said, for me, it's like, how can I put it? Like for me, being a virgin was not like you could not touch me. It just meant we couldn't do that, you know?
Right,
So it was one of
right.
those things where you can touch me if as long as we agreed upon it. I'm like, okay, we're not gonna go further than this point right here.
Yeah,
Touching was all in. It was just like I wasn't gonna go any further because I didn't know what was going on with you. So that
yeah,
was the thing. So I wouldn't have had an issue with that game, and I didn't have an issue with like the touching and all that other kind of stuff. That was not a problem for me because I'm just like, well, being a virgin to me was just like, okay, I'm just not gonna have sex. It didn't
yeah,
mean you couldn't touch me or I couldn't kiss you or we couldn't still experience intimacy. It just meant that I'm not gonna go further than this. So yeah, I did find that a little painful to watch because I'm just like, you don't know. And then when he was asking her something else, she's just like, well, I don't know. I'm like, so you didn't look this stuff up or research it or
but
because when I was a
it
virgin,
made
I
me
did
want.
talk about sex. Like I talked about
Yeah,
it, I knew about it. It's not because I actually wanted it. It's just like I wasn't sure about the person. So that was the whole thing. And I
right.
was taken back by all of that because I think I could only experience that, I could only relate to her when I was maybe like a teenager. But once I became an adult,
Exactly. It's
you know,
totally different.
yeah.
I just found it so strange. And excuse me. So the thing was, there was a point in time, I don't know if you remember, where she mentioned to him, she's like, I've done other things, and he was like, oh,
Yes.
okay. And I think he was trying to get an idea like of where she was with everything, and I guess he thought that maybe she would be comfortable or whatever. She just hadn't actually done that. So
Yeah.
that was very weird because I thought, I guess I was of the same mind frame that probably he was. And she's
I
just
was too.
like, yeah. And that thing about the quarter, like, really, I was like, really? Like, you
I
don't
was
see
so
the problem
annoyed.
there.
I was annoyed because first she's like, well, this is something only the experts and my mom know. And I'm like, yes, a juicy secret. And it's just like, when I was a kid on the bus, I put money in my mouth, we hit a bump, and I swallowed a quarter. Oh, how embarrassing. I'm like, what? Huh? Are you serious? Like, this is your secret? Like, wow. It kind of blew my mind because I'm just like, you're 27 and these are the secrets you're still telling and they're embarrassing. Now, to me, that's a funny story that I will always tell people, like, you know what I did when I was a kid? So it's not a secret. It's not embarrassing. It's actually funny. And so I was just
Exactly.
shocked. And then did you hear like when she was saying, well, I told Keith my secret and I think that this is what he needed. I'm like, oh, you
Oh
totally
my
got this up.
goodness.
Like, this is not what
Mm,
this is not the secret.
yeah, at all. And I like when they did the flashback on, I think they did a flashback, and I was like, did she see this? Like, does she get it now? And no, she didn't. So,
No, she did not get it at all. Even when I watched when they came back together, the reunion part, and she was like, well, I'm good. I'm just like, no, you're not. You should probably get some counseling about sex therapy and intimacy and like loosening it up so that the next person you're with won't have to do that. 'Cause, I mean, it was such a huge issue for her. And I'm just like, I appreciate that she was a virgin, but like, dude, it's not that big of a deal. Like, would you stop shouting it to the world and making it seem like this is the best thing ever? Like, come on.
hmm.
Like, it's not all that. Like, I don't
Right.
understand.
Oh my goodness. That's so
Yeah.
funny. So, kind of segueing into the next question here, physical attraction versus personality. So if they had like if you were on the show Married at First Sight and you have a perfect